This is the 46 of 46 podcast Summit Sessions, where we'll talk all things Adirondack, backcountry, and beyond. From high peak stories and adventures to trail tips and tricks, we'll dive deep into the heart of these mountains and the people who passionately climb them. Adirondack maps and spruce traps, bushwhacks and backpacks. It's all here on the 46 of 46 Summit Sessions. Welcome back to another Summit Session here on the 46 of 46 podcast. Today's topic can be described in a single word: ultra. Here in the Adirondack Mountains and in the Northeast, hiking challenges are a pretty popular way to get out on the trails, where you hike a specific list of peaks that make up the specific challenge. And these hiking challenges are a great way to plan out your trips and to see different mountains in different areas based on the various lists that you're currently hiking. Some popular challenges in the Adirondacks include the Saranac Lake Sixer, the Lake Placid Niner, the Lake George 12-ster, the Fire Towers, the Fulton Chain Trifecta. There's tons of them. For most hikers, just completing these challenges over months or sometimes even years is satisfaction enough. For others, however, hiking them all in one single day as fast as possible is the way to go. This is ultra hiking. And ultra hiking is for the hardcore, and it's an incredible way to push your limits both physically and mentally to see what you're made of. And my guest today has completed pretty much all of these popular Adirondack ultra challenges, which typically range from 30 to 40 miles total with 6 to 12 mountains, whether it's the summer or the winter. This man is a machine. His name is James Griffiths, and he's here to talk all about ultra hiking in the Adirondacks. So James, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome name, by the way.
Thanks. Yes, right.
Before we get into it, I know you did a Spartan race last week. How'd that go?
I did. It was my first Spartan race, actually. And I didn't know what to think of it going into it, being a winter Spartan and all. It was down at Greek Peak, down in Cortland, New York. But it went amazing. I got to talk myself down. I was really psyched out at first, and then ended up being the most fun race I've ever been in. So I definitely plan on doing more, and I'd love to go do the Killington race this year and possibly go even further than that. So that's what I like to do.
So it was a success then in your mind overall?
Very much so. Very much.
Awesome. So as we get into it, how did you get into hiking and the outdoors in general? And then at what point did just going from hiking kind of transition to ultra hiking in particular?
So I've always grown up in the outdoors, hunting, fishing, and stuff with my dad, but never really went officially hiking, I guess. I guess walking in the woods is hiking, but I never went officially to the high peaks, I guess, until 2011. I went with a few of my cousins, learned a lot. Our first trip was supposed to be the whole Great Range over 5 days. We had this big, great plan, and it ended up taking us 3 days to do Upper and Lower Wolf Jaw. And that was it. I had a 90-pound pack on my back. The ranger at the gate at AMR probably laughed at us, but we looked like a bunch of first-timers, and we learned real quick.
3 days to do those two mountains? I don't even know how you could break it up into 3 days.
We went up and camped in the call in between the two, and then did Lower and Upper, and then camped in the call again, and then made the hike down.
Okay, I get you. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. So that was a big learning experience. And then from there, my next few peaks, we learned a lot, packed a lot lighter, was able to do, the rest of the Lower Great Range, and then do Marcy in another trip. And that was over the course of a few years. I made like one trip up to the high peaks a year. And it was fun, but it wasn't my life like it is now. And then in 2016, I was getting my hair cut, and the hairdresser there just mentioned mountains. And I started talking about mountains and how I had planned on going up again that year. And she introduced me to the what was it, the aspiring 46ers page. Now it's backcountry.
Sure.
She introduced me to that page, and then it kind of just took off. I started getting intrigued. I did the trap dike, and then the very following weekend, I did a solo sunrise on Giant, my first hike in the dark, my first solo hike, and it's still to this day the most incredible sunrise I've ever seen. And it just the following day, I did the whole Dix Range, and after that, it's become a huge part of my life, and it's amazing.
That's great. So you're not hiking with 90-pound packs anymore. Can we assume that?
Nope, I can't say I've done that. I'm not even backpacking.
Now let me ask you. I have to hear more about that story because that makes me laugh. So you planned to do the lower Great Range. You guys hiked in, and you only hit upper and lower Wolf Jaw. So at some point, you must have said, either we've made a mistake, this is way more than I thought, or you just ran out of time. I need to hear more of that story because that's funny. We've all been in those situations.
Yes, we have, I think, and it's all important. So important, everybody has to start somewhere. You never know where that person is on their journey out on their trail. So, just always be polite, and you just never know. So I was that guy once. We all were that guy once. So I had a 90-pound pack on. We all did. We all got this huge order from Kelty, and we thought we were professional backpackers or something. I don't even know. But we had planned to do the whole Great Range over 5 days. And I knew so little at that point. I'm not even sure where we planned on camping. I was just following my cousins. And very, very early on, before we even started climbing, like the walk down AMR Road, we realized that we made a huge mistake and that we probably weren't going to get this whole thing done, but we were just going to see what we could do. So we hiked up. The hike up Wedgebrook, oh my God, it was worse. I have permanent scars on my back from my pack from pack burn. I ended up having to wrap an ace bandage around my torso because my pack weighed so heavy. And I'm, 6 foot, 155, 60 pounds. So I'm a small framed guy, but tall. So a 90-pound pack on me is a lot. And I was very top heavy. But that hike up Wedgebrook was brutal. We got to that highest campsite just below the call there and set up camp. And we had a great time, cooked some meals, but I think we realized we weren't going to do this because we realized we were not going to be able to get up and over upper Wolf Jaw to get to Armstrong with these packs on. So that's when we decided that we were just going to camp. So we did the Jaws the next day, came back down, camped. It poured, thundered and lightning. There was trees. I thought we were gonna die. But it was a great learning experience, and I was spending it with my family, and it was just great. So then we hiked out the next day and drove up Whiteface actually on the way home.
Classic.
And ended the weekend that way. So it was a good learning experience. My next trip I had a 30-liter pack on and not nearly as much in my pack. I think I even had the kitchen sink in my pack on the first hike. So
sounds like you had the refrigerator as well.
I might have.
You
I'm not sure. Oh yeah.
Nice. So well, yeah, obviously everyone's had those hiking tragedies more or less. I certainly have when I went up Mackenzie, and then on the way down after struggling tremendously way back in the day, and my body just stopped working completely. I didn't bring anything. I just went with my brother. So similar to you went with your family. I went with my brother and was just like, oh, sure. And he said, yeah, it's short. So I was like, okay, cool. So I didn't bring anything. And they had a backpack. And he's like, no, I got stuff in there. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah. And then on the way back down, my legs just stopped working completely. I couldn't walk. It was terrible. I eventually made it out, but yeah, it's funny looking back on it now. So I have a story like that myself.
I mean, Mackenzie's harder than some of the high peaks, in my opinion. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
it's definitely not. It's definitely not like Mount Joe or Mount Baker, which is in my brain kind of what I was expecting. But
right,
yeah,
right.
Learning experience. Hey, they're just as important as good experiences, maybe even more so.
Absolutely. Both have their place, for sure.
So going with ultra hiking, what challenges have you completed as far as the ultras go here in the Northeast? There's so many of them. So what have you completed?
Oh God, there's a patch for everything nowadays, it
There
seems.
certainly is.
And new ones are popping up every year, I feel like. So I've done almost all of I guess what you would consider the major ones or what everybody looks at for ultras, I guess. So, Saranac Sixer, the LP Niner, Great Range Traverse, that's considered an ultra.
Hmm.
To do all peaks in one day, all eight. There's, the Cranberry Lake 50, where you do the whole Cranberry Lake 50-mile loop in under 24 hours. That's a lot of footsteps. I had never done anything before that many footsteps. And then outside of, well, you got Lake George 12 2 down there. That's also an ultra if you do all 12 in 24 hours. And then outside of New York, there's the Taconic Crest Traverse, which I guess is partially in New York, but it's also in Vermont and Massachusetts, which is really cool because you cross 3 state lines a few times.
Cool.
And that's 37 miles long. And then in New Hampshire, you've got the Pemi, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It's Pemi Wilderness Loop. And that's 32 miles or something like that, maybe more. And then the Presidential Traverse, it feels like you're on a different planet up there. The Mahoosuc, which is mighty and mean and beautiful, and that's half in Maine, half in New Hampshire. And I forgot the Devil's Path down in Catskills. That's a pretty typical ultra as well. That'll get your blood pumping. There's a few sketchy spots in there, but I think that kind of stuff is fun. But some people, you know,
Type 2
um,
fun.
yeah, type 2 fun. A lot of this is type 2 fun.
I'd say all of it is for the most part. Maybe Mount Joe or something small like that is kind of fun for anyone, but anything beyond that, I'd classify as type 2, especially ultra hiking. My goodness. So you've done
Yes.
a lot of these that you mentioned are part of the Northeast Ultra 8.
Yes, that's correct. There was a challenge created a few years ago that grouped together all of the what they considered the 8 most difficult hiking challenges in the Northeast to do in one day. And that's most of what I had just mentioned, aside from like the Lake George 12-ster and the LP Niner, which I'm sure if they were in existence when that was created, those would have been placed in aside from some of the ones that are in there now, because I think that they're a little bit harder than a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's good to venture off into other parts of the park and to see new things. And I'm a huge advocate of go new places, try new things, put things together that most people don't put together, like routes and stuff like that, unconventional ways to do things, and just have fun with it. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to go out there and crush it all the time. I enjoy super leisurely hikes in the woods too. Anybody that's hiked with me knows that I'll hike at any pace that my group is going with, and some days you go out to crush ultras, and some days you go out to climb Mount Joe, and it will take 5 hours.
Sure.
And it's just it just depends on the company and the type of day you're looking for, and and I like to saunter just as much as I like to fly. So
Yeah, I know the feeling very well. So what was the first ultra that you did, or what was the first giant hike, whether it's it's an official ultra challenge or whatnot? What was your first big hike? And maybe it was an ultra.
so that all got started actually because I had met a lady um, who's pretty well known in the Adirondacks named Nancy, and she I hiked with her a few times, and she like really got my thoughts grinding because she is big into unconventional routes as well, and she's overcome so much, and she's just a really big inspiration to me, and that just kind of talking to her a lot got my gears turning. So my first winter actually hiking. So winter